women today still carry the burden of making marriage work. Women often feel pressure to be the emotional manager, to keep the spark alive, organize the date nights, find marriage support, take accountability for both partners' growth. Meanwhile, most husbands have not been taught to carry relational responsibility because their focus was on providing. But marriage is not a one-woman show. A healthy marriage is about shared ownership of every single shift. Welcome to the Marriage and Motherhood podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Perda. As a marriage coach who's married with 3 kids, I know how much parenthood could change a marriage. If flirting, laughing, and having fun together feels like a thing of the past, then I'm here to teach you that marriage doesn't have to feel so hard with your parents, and your marriage can thrive even when you're in the season of raising kids. Whether you're in a good place in your marriage and you just want to continue growing together, or you're wondering if you even like your spouse anymore, this podcast has something for you. Join me here each week as we dive into what it takes to help your marriage grow, and maybe even do a 180. You'll learn ways to handle conflict better, bring that spark back into your relationship, as well as learn how to improve other areas of your life from my lovely guest experts. Are you ready for the next stage of your life in marriage? Let's dive in. Hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Marriage and Motherhood podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about something that I newly came across because of a friend, my friend Katie. She said, hey, you may be interested in making an episode about this. And she was 1,000% correct. And so this episode is about how tired we are as women and how the cycles are breaking. Women today aren't just working one shift, whether that's at home or for someone else, right? If you have a job or if you own your own business like I do, most women today are working 5 shifts. So if you've ever wondered why you're so tired, or if you've ever wondered why women from previous generations are telling you that you're doing too much, that you are running yourself ragged, this episode will likely help you feel seen, heard, validated. And it's not because you're doing anything wrong. It's because the times have changed and only one side has changed with the times. And we are having to pull up the other side to change with us. And so I wanted to introduce you to the concept of the 5th shift, which I did not come up with, okay? The 5th shift is known as the invisible labor of keeping the marriage healthy and alive and well on top of everything else, okay? So before I get into that, let's just define what the 5 shifts are if you are new to this idea. So the first shift is the paid work for working moms or domestic work for stay-at-home moms, okay? The primary job of keeping the household functioning. And so if you're at work, obviously doing your job. And then if you're a stay-at-home mom, then, keeping the house up and running while everyone else is off doing whatever they're doing, right? Your husband's at work, your kids are at school or at home with you. And then there's a second shift, which is the mental and emotional juggling act that starts when the workday ends. So if you're a stay-at-home mom, that means like when everybody comes home, right? And the second shift was coined by someone named Arlie Hochschild. I'm sorry if I'm butchering her name, but this was way back in 1989 when she wrote a book about it called The Second Shift. And this is the unpaid domestic work that we're all very familiar with that has traditionally been labeled as a woman's job, which meant taking care of the kids, cooking, cleaning, all the stuff that women have disproportionately taken on while they work full time, right? So remember back then, women weren't allowed to work, right? Women stayed at home. And then war happened, and then they needed more people out in the field doing the things, working in the factories. And so women started to work, right? But that responsibility of the second shift never got rebalanced. And so this second shift has caused a lot of resentment because of the imbalance that exists in many, many households, right? For the men who haven't been raised to share in the domestic work, right? They didn't see their father do it. Their mother also didn't raise them to do it. And so they move into adult life, going into their own marriage, carrying out what they saw modeled to them, which is, well, the woman does all of this. And my job is to provide and to protect, and that's it. Right. So their idea of their role has just continued playing out as it did in the past. The third shift is the invisible labor, such as planning, coordinating, organizing the family, right? Like the scheduling of the appointments, the buying of the presents as we enter the holidays. That's like especially relevant. Planning events, making sure the kids' clothes are switched out in time so that they have clothes that fit them. Figuring out what to do with their old clothes, whether we're keeping it for younger siblings or we're passing it on to other people or donating them. And also managing the emotional well-being of the family members, right? So like the sibling fights, the tantrums or the sadness or the big feelings that might come up, how they're doing in school, how their friendships are going. All of that requires a lot of mental and emotional capacity, which ends up with us feeling really exhausted and unavailable to connect with our spouse at the end of the night. The fourth shift is the overnight care, right? The nightmares, the bedwetting, people getting sick, people having trouble falling asleep and coming to look for you, right? It's the shift that no one clocks, but everyone feels because of the interrupted sleep. And then there's the fifth shift, the mental and emotional and physical labor of maintaining the marriage, right? So that looks like scheduling date nights, working on your sex drive, initiating sex, working on communication, finding a marriage professional if your marriage needs support, the reading of the books to improve how you communicate or how you approach your marriage and trying to keep things spicy. All of these shifts, first all the way to the fifth, have historically fallen on women. And I'm going to specifically be talking about the fifth shift today. The problem with the fifth shift is that many women have absorbed this belief that they are responsible for the health of the marriage. Now, I've always seen women as the heart of the family, and whether it's nature or nurture, I don't know, maybe both, we have a stronger inclination to make sure everyone is thriving in the family, right? We pick up on emotions more. We are attuned with how everyone's feeling, and we can kind of tell what people are needing, right? But this belief that the women is in charge of the marriage as a whole, right? Like we own that. We own the success. We own the fails. That is rooted in outdated patriarchal conditioning, where women were raised to be caretakers and men were raised to achieve, provide, and protect. And that just doesn't fit well in the modern society and how we do things now, right? We're no longer living in a time where women don't work, right? Now we're living in a time where women have a choice of whether they work or don't work. And also things are just significantly more expensive. The standard of living has increased exponentially. And so in some areas, you almost need both people to work just to make ends meet. But just to take a trip down memory lane, marriage back then wasn't about emotional partnership. It was about, hey, are you a good enough person for me to marry? Are we going to work together well? Like the woman will take care of the house, the man will make money, we can survive with each other, we can make kids. And then there's that, right? Like the connection wasn't something that was a deep factor in who you married, right? That's a bonus for sure. Like if you think back to the medieval times, there's a lot of arranged marriages. And Then it became about attraction, like, okay, I'm attracted to you, and also you can provide, and I have domestic labor skills, and so let's do this. Whereas now it's about partnership, connection. Can I see a life with you? Do we enjoy time with each other? So there's a lot more standards to picking partners today, right? But back then, women were seen as property. And also, marital consent was assumed. Like domestic violence was often dismissed. It wasn't even something that you could bring up legally because it's just like, well, you're married, so it's acceptable, right? And so this history explains why so many women today still carry the burden of making marriage work. And how this shows up today is that women often feel pressure to be the emotional manager and the peacekeeper, to keep the spark alive, to organize the date nights, to find marriage support, to figure out the sex schedules, to take accountability for both partners' growth. Meanwhile, most husbands have not been taught to carry relational responsibility because their focus was on providing, for achieving performance, all the things that boys were raised to focus on, right? But the truth about partnership today is that marriage is not a one woman show. A healthy marriage is about shared ownership of every single shift. Okay. Now, share doesn't necessarily mean 50-50. It just means what works for your marriage. If in your marriage, like the woman doing all of the domestic labor and the husband doing none of it works for you and it doesn't create any sense of resentment, then go do that. If that doesn't work for you, then you've got to work together to figure out what will, right? So yeah, partnership is not 50-50 across the board. It just means mutual awareness and agreement. So sometimes a partner might carry more because they have the capacity to. And other times you might trade off based on capacity or skill or even interest, right? I have no interest in doing laundry. My husband is very particular about how laundry is done. So for us, that was a no brainer. It's like, you're going to do it. I'm not doing that. I will put away my clothes. I will help the kids put away their clothes. And by help, I mean I make it easier for them to put it away. So, I'll fold my 5-year-old's clothes and she puts it away. I sort out my son's clothes so he can put it away, and then I'll take care of mine. And that's just how we balance laundry, right? I love to cook, so I have assumed that role. But when I'm sick or when I'm out late because I'm shuttling the kids so there are different activities, because I have the more flexible schedule being a business owner and he works for a company, then I will say, hey, take this out, turn the oven on, or get this started for me and I'll finish it when I get home. Or I'll have an easy meal for him prepped so that he can finish executing it, right? So just like cook it. It's about working together for the end goal of, hey, let's have this time go smoothly so that we can both have the energy and capacity to connect later, or so that it's not that one spouse is completely burned out while the other one feels like they're thriving, right? It's not about that. It's about making sure the whole is doing well, right? It's also not about keeping score. It's about being on the same team and remembering that, right? So in every team that you can think of, everyone has a role, and the ownership of specific things is clear. And that's how a team functions in a really healthy, effective way. Think about sports teams, right? People have different positions that they play so that the team as a whole is able to succeed. Or if you think about work teams, there are people with different roles, right? There's going to be someone who manages, there's going to be someone who executes the actual work, there's going to be someone who comes in as a specialist and says, hey, keep these things in mind as you move through this process. And then there's going to be the quality person to make sure everything's being done to a specific standard that's been set, right? And so we have to think of splitting responsibilities in a way that works for your unique dynamic in your family, and keeping in mind what is that vision, that goal that you guys have that you are all working towards fulfilling, right? So let's just reframe the sense of responsibility here, right? It does not all fall on the woman. You are responsible for your part, and then everyone else is responsible for their part. Obviously, sometimes you may fill in because it's been a stressful time, someone's sick, whatever, right? But that's not a permanent thing. Your role is to stay aware of your needs, communicate what you need clearly, and take care of yourself so that you can show up open and available, whether it's emotionally available, physically available, mentally available, right? Whereas your spouse's role is to listen, to respond, to take accountability for his own growth, for his participation, for how he shows up, for how he takes care of his responsibilities, right? So while you can influence your marriage by how you show up, you are not meant to carry it alone, right? You are in a marriage that involves two people. While you may feel the need to bring something up because you see something that you're concerned about, or you're noticing a pattern that can create a bigger issue, that doesn't mean it's all on you to fix, right? Certainly you can bring it up, you can work as a teammate, but your partner also needs to be involved in that as well. So here are some examples of how you can start to shift this dynamic if this is what is going on in your home, right? It doesn't mean that your husband's an asshole. It could just mean this is how he grew up, and he just needs to be aware that this is not the dynamic that you want. This is not the dynamic that you want for yourself, or the dynamic that you want to pass on to your kids, because your kids are now absorbing what you're showing them, how marriages work, right? So whether you have a daughter, this is who she's going to look for in future partners, right? She's going to look at her dad and be like, okay, I'm going to look for someone like this. Or for your son, okay, this is how I show up as a husband. And he's going to look to you and say, okay, this is the version of a woman that I'm going to look for. So if you're not okay with how your dynamic is playing out, and the tensions that they're exposed to, the resentment that they can feel, and the imbalance of responsibility, then it's time to change things, right? So instead of silently doing it all and holding a grudge, you're going to invite your partner into collaboration. And what this can sound like is, I feel like I've been managing a lot of the emotional load in our marriage. Can we look at how we can share this more evenly, just to fill him in on how taxing it is, right? And if you'd like, you can translate this to how it shows up in your marriage and how it can benefit your marriage once this load starts to become something that's more evenly distributed, right? And again, it doesn't mean 50-50, right? But it could mean like, hey, I would love, like, you can even share how that could improve their relationship with their kids, and also give you some reprieve so that you have the space to either take care of yourself or have the space to even connect after the kids are in bed. Another thing is, instead of forcing desire, you can get curious about what you're needing to even want to be intimate again, whether that's rest, emotional safety, support, right? More of a balance in the division of labor, feeling seen. Okay, so this is something that you can be responsible for, is like gaining that clarity from reflecting, what is stopping me from wanting to be intimate? What are the obstacles that are present right now? And then, of course, instead of organizing everything, ask your partner, what part of this can you take the lead on this month, right? So for example, like a lot of times, because I'm the person that cooks, I'm also the person that thinks about what groceries we need. And while it seems simple, as you know, if you do this too, it can wear on you. And so my husband does majority of the grocery shopping, right? And so it's like that's how we as a family share the load in that. Or another example is we share notes to plan for gift giving. And so I added him as a collaborator, and he can start to think of ideas that he comes up with to gift the kids. So I am not the only one who's taking this on, right? All that to say, I want you to know that the fifth shift does not fall on you completely, okay? And I'm not sharing this as a way to get resentful and bitter and start to blame your husband and taking out on him, okay? He may not even be aware that this is affecting you, okay? Because if this has not been something that's normal to him growing up, the sharing of the load of any of the shifts, then of course he's not going to be considerate of these things because it's not on his radar to do this. So sometimes all it takes is just bringing awareness for the sake of improving your experience of the partnership and to rebalance this so that even if you're doing most of it, if him taking on one more thing is going to help you feel better, let him know, okay? Because if your partner truly loves you, he will want the best for you, just like you want the best for him. And if he has the capacity to do so, then let him, okay? When both partners see the relationship as a shared effort, it will deepen the connection that you two experience. It will deepen the respect that you two feel, and it will affect your desire in a positive way. Okay? So, with that said, if you feel like there needs to be some rebalancing in your relationship and you want help identifying what areas of your relationship could use some more attention, could use some assessing to figure out what do I want so that you're clear about it with your husband so he's in the know instead of just saying, oh, I'm just so overwhelmed, I do everything. He won't know where to start with that, okay? So if this is you, I recommend grabbing my Marriage 360 review because you cannot change what you do not notice, okay? And so part of this work is taking the responsibility for identifying what you are wanting and needing from your partner to change. And this 360 review is a great exercise for you and or your spouse to do so that there is more transparency, there is more clarity between the two of you so that you can have a sense of direction on what to work on, okay? So awareness is half the battle. So go grab the Marriage 360 review, go check it out and have a conversation with your spouse and see where it leads you. And just because things have been this way all this time, no matter how long you've been married, doesn't mean that you're locked into doing it this way for the rest of your lives, okay? Give your spouse the opportunity to step up and show up for you because if he wants this marriage to work, he will do it, okay? So give him the opportunity, but first get clear on what it is that you're wanting to change and don't go to him with just complaints, okay? Because that's going to automatically put him on defense. That will not yield a productive or healthy conversation. And let me know how it goes, okay? If you're needing help, go check out the Marriage 360 review or contact me by booking a clarity call so that we can get to know each other better and discuss how marriage coaching can help you find your way back to each other. Build the skills so that you two can navigate the rest of your marriage in a healthy and happy way and start enjoying your marriage and really set that strong example for your kids. And that's all I got for you today. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. If you know someone that could benefit from listening to this episode, please share it with them. Better yet, share it in your Instagram stories and tag me so I can give you a shout out. If you love this show, I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for listening. Please leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen. That truly helps the show grow and helps more people like you find the show and get the support that they need. And that's all I have for you today. I will catch you back here on the next episode. Bye. That's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it. If you did, please send me a message over on Instagram at Michelle Perta Coaching to let me know what you loved most about it. Hearing from my listeners is my absolute favorite. And if you've been loving this podcast, please leave a rating and review. This will help people like you find the show and get the help they need. Catch you here on the next episode. Bye.